Hi, I'm going to pick up on the very touching story that Alex told us about his grandmother and her having Alzheimer's before he had the opportunity to express his gratitude to her. And this is an experience that many of us have had, where we feel gratitude for someone, to someone for something, and for whatever reasons we're unable to express this gratitude. In a few minutes, Cody's going to talk to us about some of the functions that feelings of gratitude play in our lives, and it seems pretty plausible that gratitude is something that evolved in us to play these roles in our lives, and sometimes it triggers in cases where we just don't have the opportunity to think the people we'd like to think. So Alex, unfortunately, is never going to be able to thank his grandmother, and this is a sort of gratitude that probably all of us have as someone that we'd like to thank, and there are various reasons why we might not be able to thank people. In some cases, it seems like there's no one to thank. Even a devout atheist sometimes reflects on natural beauty and feels an immense feeling of gratitude, but we realize, who are you going to thank? Plate tectonics for this beautiful valley? There's nobody to thank. In other cases, we think there would be someone to thank, but we don't know who. I get this experience whenever I eat nice dark chocolate. I think somebody richly deserves my thanks, but I don't know who it is. And probably there's also the further problem that even if I did know who they were, I wouldn't be able to thank them. And so this is a circumstance if somebody's far away, if somebody has lost their faculties, or if somebody is just inaccessible to us, we might not be able to thank them. And then there are cases where we know who the person is, we'd like to thank them, but it'd just be awkward. And I think I can think of times in my history where people have said things that it was a time when I was feeling really down, and they've said something that made me feel better about myself, that helped to pick me up, and that's a hard thing to say. Hey, I was in a really bad place, and something you said really helped me. That's something that's hard to open up to somebody and say, and yet sometimes we do feel that sort of gratitude for people. So what I'm going to invite you to do now is an activity, and the goal of this activity is to try to get a little bit of relief of the sort of frustration we feel when we get these gratitude feelings and are unable to express them. And so what I'd like you to do, if you're willing, is to there should be an index card on your chair when you sat down, and I'd invite you to think about somebody that you would like to thank, if only you could, but for whatever reasons you can't. And I'd like you to anonymously write on the card a note saying who you'd like to thank and what you'd like to thank them for. And just to give you fair warning, later in the program today, we're going to have a group of people read some of the thank you notes that you all have written. So I ask you to do it anonymously and with the idea that it may be read out to the group of people, but hopefully everyone, whether your thank you ends up being read or not, hopefully you'll get at least some sense of relief from having this opportunity to express gratitude, even if it isn't directly to whoever, or the lack of whoever might be deserving of your gratitude. Still, you can have this opportunity to present the gratitude or express the gratitude, and hopefully that'll bring a little bit of relief to you at least. Okay, so let's go ahead and give people a moment to write a thank you note on the cards, and then we'll have someone gather these up in a moment. I'm not sure whether everybody has pens. I have a couple of extras, and if people can sort of share pens around, we can solve this as a collective effort to distribute a few pens among many hands. I'm going to give people a moment more to write, and then what I'm going to have you do is pass these in, and if I could have people sort of gather them and hand them to this side of the room, and then Tammy, do you want to collect them from this side of the room? And if you didn't get a pen yet, or it's just taking you longer to write your thoughts, I encourage you to multitask. I'm sorry to Cody for encouraging people to multitask during his presentation, but you feel free to multitask, and we'll take in whatever stragglers of the notes we have after Cody gives his presentation. So if you want to, those who are finished, if you want to go ahead and sort of pass them to this side of the room, your left side of the room, and we'll gather those up, and then any stragglers that are finished after Cody's presentation, we'll get those. Well, thank you everyone for writing out the index cards, and my apologies to the last two that I got here that I haven't had a chance to read, though I will read those. And I and Tammy helped me read these. We read all these. We, for reasons of time, aren't going to be able to read all of them out to the room, but there were a number of themes, and so we tried to choose cards that hit the themes that we're running through things, and even if they aren't exactly your words, I hope you'll find expressions in these thank yous that match the sorts of feelings that you have. So I've had 4 people who've agreed to help read some of these out, so if I could get those 4 people to come up here. Okay. So I'll just one and rotate, one and rotate. Okay.
All right, first one. I am grateful that I have a wonderful mom and dad who care.
I also want to thank my grandmother for being there for me. She provided comfort while I dealt with my dysfunctional family, something I can sympathize with.
Thanks to my wife for putting up with me.
Thanks to everyone who let me stay with him for the past 2 weeks while I'm here in the DFW area on vacation.
This one's interesting. Thank you to my Hindu friend in the 3rd grade for asking if I believed in God. It was the first time I actually thought about it and realized there was no proof. And I started the road down to atheism.
My profound thanks goes out to Mrs. Hoggard, my 3rd grade teacher, who saved the previously miserable experience of school for me and could still recite part of a poem that I wrote at age 8 to my mom 25 years later.
I'd like to thank my dear friend who was there for me the whole time during my deconversion, and to the couple who offered me a place to stay.
Thanks to my husband who stays by my side despite my many flaws. We can all go with that one.
I'm thankful for the Founding Fathers whose foresight still resonates to make this the freest country in the entire world.
I'm sensing a theme in my cards. A 9th grade English teacher for acknowledging how hard I worked.
I'd like to thank this group, the FOF, for the support and community that they have provided since my recent deconversion. Thank you all.
I'd like to thank my grandfather, the most solid, sensible, and courageous man I've ever known. He died rather suddenly and very young. I wish I could have said how amazing he was so he could understand his impact in the world.
I personally like this one. Thank you to Carl Sagan. Thank you for your contributions to science, science popularization, and skepticism.
To my father for always being involved in my life and making me feel like the most important and special person in the world.
I'd like to thank my grandmother. I met her at the age of 1 and cancer took, if you call that meeting. She made my mother the greatest mother and cook, and I would have loved to have spoken with her.
Thanks to my grandfather, who gave me my sense of humbleness and humor, who comforted me and defended me in a family full of religious turmoil.
Thank you to the police officer that pulled me over 15 years ago when I was living a destructive lifestyle. You showed me so much kindness. I changed the direction of my life after that day.
I want to thank my 7th grade history teacher who laughed at me when I talked about the flood. He was the first person I ever met that didn't believe that tale.
Dr. Elizabeth Weiss for baking me cookies and cakes every week that I was in chemo. She said, we need to fatten you up.
Thanks to James Madison, instrumental architect of the First Amendment, often unacknowledged. He wasn't even present at the Constitutional Convention.
Thank you for the person that wrote this one. I am grateful for this fabulous organization, FOF, and proud to see atheist organizations, this service, and Camp Quest. My biggest struggle as an atheist in Dallas is trying to give, is an atheist mom in Dallas, is trying to give my children a sense that they're not alone in rejecting Abrahamic religions and in valuing free thought and science, reason above authority.
I want to take just a second to echo the sentiment that I am so grateful to every one of you for letting me know that I'm not alone. This one says, thanks, Dad, for being there when I needed you as a child and supporting me in all of my endeavors, including how I believe. Many, many things.
I'm grateful for my dog. Who do I think for dogs? No clue.
Thank you to my children who made me grow in more ways than I could know. Thanks for the laughs.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for sharing your thoughts, and I hope you've drawn something from hearing other people's gratitude as well.